Welcome back to Let's Talk Race and Model. I'm your host, Harrison Paul. Brothers and sisters, Chris Kaba's family would not get justice for their son and brother who was killed at the hands of a police officer because he was found not guilty in the trial. For anybody who's watching from across the sea, Chris Kaba was a young black British boy who was driving late at night. Police supposedly caged him in. He was unarmed, and they said the car he was driving in had been a shooting. Was actually the day before that car was actually had been used in a shooting. So they closed him in, and Chris Kaba was then killed by the police after they had blocked him in. I'll put some footages on the screen for you guys to see it as the body cam footage has finally been released. Now, there's a comment that triggered this episode today, and the comment was I've been looking for it now because I obviously when you see something on your phone, the comment, and you go back to look at it on the laptop, it won't show up. So I can't find the comment now, but a black brother who felt like he wanted to be the role model for the black community took this time to actually leave a comment saying, "Good, great." Basically, I'm paraphrasing. I'm happy that this guy who was a criminal, who did crime, who had a past crime and whatnot, a life of crime, can now and or rather, he said the family. I'm happy the family can move on, meaning the police officer's family. I'm happy they can move on with their lives because this guy was a criminal anyway. And I'm tired of us murdering black people who were criminals. And I felt his pain as he wrote that message. I thought to myself, I understand it. But at the same time, of course, that's an Uncle Ruckus behavior. But I don't like to just call something Uncle Ruckus because it's Uncle Ruckus. I like to have a good and a great explanation as to why something is wrong. I'm noticing nowadays a lot of time people in this current generation do not have good debate skills. If someone agrees with you or if you don't agree with something, they just block you out or block you out, and we don't have good reasons to say, okay, debunk my perspective and let it be that, let it be the debate. So today I'm gonna go and unpack this today, as I said to myself, what would I tell this brother if I was to look across from him today? Well, I was watching episode just last night, and it's been a dramatic weekend for me, brothers and sisters. I'm going to try and share it all on today's episode, so stick with me. I was watching a documentary with the missus last night, and it was about, hold on, let me get it up on the screen for you guys to see it. It was called Jailbreak, Love on the Run. And it's about this woman, right? She's a white woman from Texas, right? It's country, real country. And she was a prison guard. So she moved from being a CO to top manager. She was a top manager CO. And I'm watching this, and I'm happy because it was a fresh documentary. Really didn't know nothing about it. She found it online, and Mrs. found it online. She's like, let's watch this. So I'm going to it kind of fresh, not really understanding the story or the background, nothing like that. But of course, they kind of let you know what this story is going to be about and whatnot. And I'm noticing, and if anybody wants to go and prove me wrong, go and watch the documentary, you'll see. I'm noticing how they are honoring this lady, right? They're honoring this lady in terms of, and I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but I could tell you what happened, how it ended. But I'm just going to say how I noticed how they were honoring her. Oh, she was such a great correctional officer. She was so great like this. She was a wonderful woman. She was a this and that. She was like a mother to everyone on the range. She was this and that, and just really lifting her up. But it turns out that this woman actually fell in love with one of the inmates. And when she falls in love with one of the inmates, not only does she fall in love, but she devises a plan for her and this man who was 10 years her junior. She was 56 years old. So it wasn't a young, naive woman like the woman that happened in the UK quite recently. We could put that down to some form of naivety. This was a 56-year-old woman. Obviously, she had been around the block and back in terms of understanding how to operate in the jail, what type of characters come in the jail, and she should have known better. So she falls in love with this murderer, mass murderer. This guy, it was a dangerous man. If you knew the crimes he was in for, I'm not going to give it away. Dangerous guy. But long and behold, Vicky, her name is, falls in love with this man. And when she falls in love with this man, she devises a plan for this man and her to escape and to run away to try and live happily ever after. And what I couldn't help but notice as I'm watching this documentary is I'm watching people romanticize her, if I can use the term, glorify her. She was great, but just made this little mistake. What's the little mistake, folks? Helping a murderer, not just a murderer, escape from jail so her and him can go and live off somewhere else. He was sentenced to 75 years, and he actually had been sentenced, and he was waiting to, I think, transfer to a different jail or something like that. I think he was appealing, something like that. But he was due for 75 years. She helps this man escape. She's having all sorts. She's having phone intercourse with him while he's in jail. They were having a full-on relationship. She would go home and call him all night on the phone. She was in a full-on relationship for a whole year with this man. Lying to everybody, lying to her work coach, lying to her workmates, her colleagues, and she's the manager of this detention center. And what I couldn't help but notice is everyone, and you should go and watch the documentary, brothers and sisters. It's everybody just constantly saying how it just wasn't like Vicky. And to a place where they even begin to empathize with, Vicky looked after everybody. Vicky looked after everybody in the range, and she looked after the inmates. And she always said inmates are not animals, they're human beings. And they really, really talked her up to a place that she had a brilliant landing, because the theory of the movie actually is a woman who was lonely because she wasn't married, she was alone, and she worked so hard and gave herself to everybody for so long that poor old Vicky never had anything left for herself. So this one moment that Vicky found someone who actually was interested in her, it was only inevitable that Vicky just wanted to receive some love for herself. And this was this narrative about Vicky. Vicky wasn't an evil woman. No. And what I thought to myself as I afterwards, I was thinking to myself, I will never truly get to know who Vicky was. Although this should be an indication to me about Vicky's character, Vicky obviously wasn't an honest person. Vicky obviously wasn't transparent. Vicky obviously wasn't an integral person, a person who operated off integrity. But we will never know that. And I'm just wondering, had it been a black woman who was great at her job, great at everything, do I think Shaniqua would be getting the benefit of the doubt the same way Vicky from Tennessee was getting the benefit of the doubt? Imagine if Shaniqua helped a black man escape. So her and this murderer, not just one murder, fuse, a guy up for 75 years, tattoos all over. Imagine if he was a rapper, drink lean, smoke weed. I just wonder, would this Netflix, or it might have been Hulu program, would it have romanticized and martyred, as that brother said, a woman who helped a convict escape? Answer that question. Riddle me that, brothers and sisters. Riddle me that. And we as black people feel always this burden. We feel this burden that we always have to be the moral high ground. We don't deserve, hear me. That's why Black Lives Matter was important. A black person only deserves life when he doesn't break the law. A black person only earns the right to be an individual when he is a straight A student. A black person we watch time and time again, white people who are completely flawed, from their community. Bear in mind, I'm not sitting here asking the white community to do this for us. Oh, this is a big one. I'm not asking the white community to do this for us. I'm asking the black community to operate in the same manner in which the white community operate for themselves. I was having a debate with somebody quite recently on TikTok Live. And he said to me, oh, you're listening to propaganda. The black community does not suffer self-hatred. We don't suffer self-hatred. And it's funny because I tried to describe this to Negroes, but it's like, you think self-hatred is as fickle or is as, well, it can be as trivial as looking in the mirror and saying, I hate myself. We have definitely stories about dark-skinned people not being as appreciated as light-skinned people. We have people who still put on wigs of a different texture of hair. So we could talk about that side, but I wouldn't call it trivial either. I would actually call it a deep, deep, deep self-hatred because of what, standards of beauty and everything that was put upon us, that we were told that we resembled monkeys and we were apes and we were ugly and we were animalistic, and we bought into that. But we could talk about that, but let's more so lean into the side of self-hatred that is not as straight up as the phrase itself looks. It's not as I look in the mirror, I hate you. No. It is how we've internalized how white society view and treat us. So when white society say, you're a criminal and you have to prove to me that you are not. So black people are always jumping on a treadmill to earn this merit of being seen as identified as civilized. Because remember, the greats of white people said that we were an uncivilized people that needed to be civilized. That legacy still lives in today. Black and brown people can't even chill because they're constantly running on the treadmill to prove their worth as a civilized person, someone who can keep up with Western society and the way Western world lives their life and what they deem as a civilized being, someone worth life. So self-hatred, we see self-hatred when we can see that the Jewish community, right? The Jewish community, or rather, I've gone too quickly. That's going to be my next statement after this. Sorry about that. But when we see that the white community can have an opportunity where they say, oh no, this person, he sinned, but he could have made it out of his sin. There's good sides to him. There's good aspects to him. He probably fell under pressures. He grew up in the wrong area. It didn't work in his favor. But that's what self-hatred is. We fail to mirror that same level of the benefit of the doubt, that same level of love and enthusiasm to see the good side of them. And we're very willing and able to extend it to the other race. Why? Because they taught us that, and now we give them that, but we can't not even give that to ourselves. Brothers and sisters, I found myself cheering for Vicky. This show, I'm not going to say it, but it results in like a cop chase. You can imagine if they escape from jail, the cops were after them. I found myself cheering for Vicky to get away. How? Because they presented me how I should feel about Vicky. They presented to me how I should feel about Vicky. So I went along with that. And they present to us every day on the news when they show us only the stabbings that happen in the ghettos that are done by black boys. When black boys are not the only ones doing stabbing in the ghettos in London. White boys are doing robberies. White boys are doing stabbing just as much, actually. I said this in the last 3 episodes. I was talking to a white boy from London who was raised in London, and he told me it is completely and categorically false to say black boys are the only ones doing stabbing in London. It is just as much white boys. You got to fear and watch your back for just as much as you do for the white boys in Nike tracksuits as you do for the black boys in Nike tracksuits. So there is a standard here that I learned from white people. I know that we're missing something because as I study my race, I also study the opposition. I also study the other races, and I realize there's something that they're able to give to themselves that we cannot give to them. There's a grace that they give to themselves. There's a self-determination. There's a protection for their race. I can come to a person and tell them, one white person, tell them another white person did this, and they'll say, are you sure? Are you sure? Jonathan's not like that. They will go through all. They may not even know Johnny. They may not even know Johnny personally. But just out of knowing that they're race, knowing that a fellow, probably an Irishman or British man, they will say, "Are you sure you're not making that up?" Because they have an instinct to protect their own race. But you go to another brother or sister, and you're a white person, and you want to demonize a black person. I'm sure you'll find a black person front and center to go there with you and say, that's what we do. We're rubbish. That's us, black people. We're terrible. We're rubbish. Won't take you long. And what I want to teach today, brothers and sisters, as I add in the next part of this lesson, which I want to add in today, is the Jewish community. Yes, I said it earlier. I'm going to say it again. The Jewish community, brothers and sisters. I found myself in a debate quite recently. It was a strange debate, right? If you take a look at your screen, you'll see, well, I found myself in a debate after I had made a statement. And I've been doing this lately. I've been showing, probably a wrong time, but I've been showing my admiration for the rise of the Jews. I've been showing my admiration for how I am pro-Palestine at this moment. But I can't help but admire the way they have managed to get world leaders to stand behind them at such an obviously wrong moment. Obviously, they're in the wrong at this moment. But they've managed to make the world comply to what they want to do, for what level of self-determination or whatever self-determination means to them. They have managed to make the world comply to that. And I can't help but ask myself, goodness me, it would be nice for us as a black community to have a little bit of that. It'd be nice for us to stand on what we want to stand on and not be questioned by world leaders. And world leaders not to be more ashamed for standing for us. And knowing that I can't stand for black people too much because I may drive away the electorate. So I've got to be vague and I've got to be, but I'm seeing people stand when something is blatantly wrong that we're seeing in Gaza, but they're going to stand behind the Jews. And I made an observation because someone came to me and said, I made an observation about the Jewish people. You know, I even said in my statement, and I wrote on my story, I said, I want our community to possess that kind of power. That's why we love eating scraps. Meanwhile, the Jews, they pick they design what they want on the menu. And a pro-Palestinian, mind you, comes to me and says to me, that's anti-Semitic. I said, anti-Semitic? You must have got me wrong. I've made but I actually did say, I said, how could you be saying this is anti-Semitic? Isn't it obvious? And then she said, well, I don't see Jews and Zionists as the same thing. They're two different things. Oh, okay, that's a good argument. That's a good mistake. Then I sat there and I said to myself, wow, I'm having to be super careful. I'm having to be super careful. Why am I having to be that careful about this topic? And then I wrote this. I'm wondering, if honest white people have been able to humbly and honestly acknowledge that their community holds power and has sometimes abused it, why is it considered an abomination for the Jewish community to do the same? Moreover, my comment stemmed from a strange form of admiration for that power, especially considering they've traveled from tragedy. If I had said that the Jews are inherently more corrupt, I would understand. However, making an observation that even Anglo-Saxons have made about their own community, whether positive or negative, makes it difficult for me to understand why the Jewish community would be exempt from that same responsibility. Listen, what I'm going to tell you here today, brothers and sisters, is that, listen, if don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't be a player hater. If the Jews have managed to set a standards and a tone for themselves where I can't even make a clear observation that at this moment, a lot of Jewish people have power. Some places, what we call the Zionist agenda, have abused it. it does not mean that I am not allowed to make an observation about the power. And I even said that if one day Africans rise from where we are and we become the new world superpower and we begin to bomb children, abuse children, whatever sorts of that, and I would take it upon my responsibility in another universe, in a parallel world, and say, my community. And it's time for me now to stand and be an ally of white people who are now being oppressed by black people. If that was to ever happen, I hope that we would learn from our own experience and we would never oppress others. But if that ever happened, I would stand on the other side and say, that is my community. Yes, that is my community. I wouldn't be so afraid of saying, what are you talking about? Black people don't have power. You do have power. Black people do have power. So it's like, I have to say, Jewish people really strike me as people, you're not going to like this, who really don't know what it is to go through a black struggle. Because I can see people who have the freedom to be so picky with how, oh no, don't say I have power. Don't say I have it. You're not allowed to say I have it. That's what I said. I would understand it's wrong to say you're inherently more corrupt. It's totally wrong. I'm saying by your DNA, but you have to at least be able to say, like the humble white people who've come at this time and say, you're right. Our community do abuse it. How could you be an ally for Palestine if you cannot even stand up at this moment and say, I am a Jew and my community do abuse certain powers, are able to climb to certain things for such and such reasons? But we can't even touch that. And now I make my way to Chris Kaba. My black brothers and sisters, you think it's all about how much rubbish you can take and keep going. If you're not perfect, if your brother or sister is not perfect, they do not deserve life. That's what everyone else taught you. Everyone else is setting this high standard for themselves. Everyone else is murdering criminals. Look at that black woman. Everyone else is given the benefit of the doubt. Okay, they put Prince William, or rather Prince, we'll say William also, we'll put Prince Andrew as well. These people, they have like a week of bad press, and then they get, okay, come on, can we go? Philip Schofield, okay, come on, can we move on from that? Bad press, and then move on from that. Donald Trump, bad press, move on from that. Benefit of the doubt, benefit of the doubt, benefit of the doubt. But because you never receive that, you do not know how to give it to yourself. We cannot keep waiting for people to teach us to give that to one another. That is one of the things I learned about the African Americans. Like I always say, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. Yes, I'm going to cry for George Floyd. I don't care what you thought about him in your books, because you're giving a lot of people the benefit of the doubt. You have heroes like Churchill. You have heroes who enslaved us, who you refused to take the statues down because you said, oh, that time, that was the ways of that time. So you give your benefit. And do you know why, brothers and sisters, as African diaspora, we don't even have great revolutionaries that we remember? People who were part of the guerrilla wars, who did some amazing set of, let's say, war activity on behalf of their people, brave stuff. We don't even martyr them. We don't even hold them up. We don't even remember them. Why? Because if they were not allowed to be a hero in the books of our oppressor, they were not allowed to be in the hero of our books either. So we didn't put them as heroes. So that's why we don't have all these names. African Americans, they smarter than us. They held on to theirs. Those ones, those Black Panthers who carry guns, they know to put respect on their name. We don't even know. We should know names and names that hover around black culture of people who maybe did some bombings, maybe did some killings, maybe did some things under the oppression that they were. But they did it for you and I to have freedom here today. Guess what? We don't remember those names. We rarely remember those names. Who are the ones we remember? Nelson Mandela. Why? Because they said we're allowed to. Because he came out of prison softer. It's no insult to Nelson. He said, you can put him as a martyr. You can celebrate him. Are you understanding what I'm getting at, brothers and sisters? So you're thinking every black person has to maybe get a degree, come to a certain place, study in college, this and that, because that's the standard that they gave to us. So we cannot give that to each other unless if anything, I'm going to give that in spite. In spite, he is a black man who deserved his day in court full stop. If that law was not supposed to be a law, you wouldn't put it there. The law says that he deserves his day in court. And guess what? Many people have gone to jail, served 10, 20 years, 15 years, and come out and been a good product to our society because they're able to teach youngins what it is to sit in jail 15 years and tell that youngin, trust me, you don't want to sit in there. Because a lot of them young brothers came from disadvantaged families. And if you really want to start pointing fingers, we can start saying how they really cause the disadvantagedness, how really they make these imbalances happen in society, that black people end up being in the poorer areas. And then when you're in the poorer areas, what happens? You're influenced by the other people. You're influenced, things happen in those poorer areas. So we can get to talking about how these ghettos are even created in the first place. How money is disproportionately distributed. How some of these black men try to get themselves back on their feet, try to put themselves in a different world, and they feel out of place when they're trying to they're knocked back down, the oppression, the racism. They internalize and think, you know what, maybe I'm a ghetto boy anyway. I always say this, not everybody has to react like you who went to Harvard and did great. Some of us fall under that pressure. Some of us turn to the cocaine. Some of us turn to the drugs. Some of us turn to the corner where they can be around the boys and feel that warmth and that they're not out of place. How about it's our responsibility to have that empathy for our. Same way they were giving Vicky from that documentary and giving her mind. A woman who let out a criminal, and was on a high-speed chase with this man. She should know better. A woman, she was not had any disability, she was just fine. A woman just looking for love, huh? So the Jewish community are setting standards for themselves, very tedious. We don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want you to call us powerful. These tedious things. And we're the people who are just showing how much rubbish we can take and keep on going. I ain't mad at the Jewish people. Do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do. I ain't gonna hate the player. I ain't gonna hate the player. I'm gonna play the game. I ain't gonna hate the player. I'm gonna play the game. But you, brothers and sisters, you have to learn also. You have got to learn also how to set a standard for your own community. Don't feel embarrassed. It's secondhand embarrassment for the ghettos. This secondhand embarrassment for Chris Kaba. Oh, he should have known better, or he should have. No. How about no? And maybe if we sang our song so much, maybe we would teach them how to sing it too. That we will not settle for any other song, that you are going to sing to our tune. And if we put grace on a Chris Kaba, you take it or leave it. We are not going to lift your standard. Is this a Negro good enough for you? Oh, no, sorry. I know that Negro, that's a bad Negro. We're not going to hold that one up for you. We're not going to hold it. Meanwhile, they've got Donald Trump's running for president. Do you think Donald Trump could have ran for president as a black man? No. Why? Because not only would their community be taking him down, but our community will be right there supporting him. Yes, he's a felon. Oh, no. He's past, digging up his past. Nah, this is not the right guy. But they can have grace to a place where this guy's actually going head to head with Kamala Harris. My brothers and sisters, people keep telling me what is going to free black people and asking me what is going to free black. Will it be business ideas, institutions? I'm telling you how the white man keeps his institutions as he builds them, keeps this thing and makes everybody know that they got to come to a standard that he set for himself, the Jewish man, the white man, whatever you may call it, is because there's this level of consciousness. This level of consciousness makes building, is the glue in building. It is the cement in between the bricks in building. It is the fact that he'll give a benefit of the doubt. You know how much friends they have are criminals, white-collar crimes, criminals. Criminals right now. They're scamming the system. Oh, he's a good guy. Boris Johnson, he's a good enough guy. But we can't get to working with each other. Why? Because we judging and nitpicking each other the same way they nitpick us. because we feel we gotta come to this perfect thing to be considered civilized, and then maybe then we'll be worth our freedom. Maybe then we'll be worth to stand eye to eye with him. And that's why every operation crumbles down. Every operation crumbles down. Because if you were to judge his operations with the same goggles that we are judging ours, I'm telling you, especially if they were internalizing it, they will crumble, they will fight, they will because the self-hatred, they won't even be able to build with each other. They wouldn't trust each other. They wouldn't move with each other. They wouldn't respect each other. And that is what is happening in our community. So that's all I got to say for today. Chris Kaba, I'm so sorry that I'm so sorry you passed in this time. In a time where we still got a lot of work to do. I'm so sorry to your family. But the work must start from within our community. The work must start from within our community. And then we will show people what type of respect we want for ourselves, whether they like it, accept it, or not. Whether they feel it's deserved or not. Just like the Jews are doing. Does it make sense to me that the Jews are saying that I cannot say that they are people of power now? It don't make no sense to me. But guess what? They still gonna dox me. If they can, where they can. So that's the game. Now we gotta play that for ourselves. We set the standard for ourselves, whether you like it or not. We're gonna give Vicky the benefit of the doubt. We're gonna give Chris Kaba the benefit of the doubt. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And I'm on a mission for you.